May history be able to say that the end of this chapter of American darkness began here tonight as love and hope and light join in the battle for the soul of the nation. And this is a battle we will win, and we'll do it together. I promise you.
That was a good speech. That was a good speech. I'm going to get a little more specific in a second. I took several notes here. That's maybe the best Joe Biden has done in the past year. It was performed well. It came off as genuine. This is one of the things that Joe Biden has, and I think a lot of us were blind to it in his chances in the primary, is that he can come off as a lot more genuine than your typical politician does. And that, I think, helps him a lot. It helped him a lot in that race, and it helped him in this speech. Obviously, you wanted to, when we get to issues like of systemic racism, the obvious comes up. Yeah, like you were kind of integral to that whole systemic part with the crime bill. But look, he's not doing that again. So he's at least changed in some ways. But here, let me go over some notes here. So he started off talking about there's a job as president, or the job as president is to work for all of us. Now, what came to mind for me immediately was just how every single poll is for progressive policy. Medicare for all, 70% support of all Americans. Democrats, it's like 90% support. Wealth tax, huge support for a wealth tax. Both AOC's idea of taxing 70% of everything made over 10 million, and Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax. I think Bernie had a wealth tax as well. But yeah, huge support for the wealth tax. Canceling student debt, huge support for that as well. So there are many issues that Joe Biden does not support. When he talks about, president's job is to represent everybody. Well, if you're ignoring the vast majority of people, what they want, then you're not being a president of everyone. But again, this is, when it comes to a speech like this, it's sort of nitpicking, because we know all this already. Biden's job here was to ignite something in people, and I think he did that. I think he did this is the best speech I've seen him give, and this, especially the way he ended it there with that anger. Man, I'm sorry. Biden has many issues, but that was a great speech. That was a great speech. Of course, yes, dig into the details. There are many issues with specifics of what he said in terms of what he doesn't support, in terms of his record. Let me go over some more notes here. He focused on Trump's failure on COVID. This is something I talked about that needed to be done more, because it is such a stark reality when you see the U.S. against every other country. There is a massive difference. I've shown the graph a million times. If you want to see it again, go to a previous video on COVID. In fact, a video today I did with Jared Kushner. Watch that video. I show you the graph. The U.S. is up here in terms of COVID cases, and everyone else is down here. And it is a clear difference of what Trump has done in terms of COVID. And look, Biden mentioned his solution as well. What he plans to do to get out of it. It was the bare minimum. But in a moment like this, when Trump can't even do the bare minimum is actual progress in that sense. So talking about having, giving schools the resources necessary to reopen, creating the equipment needed, being honest with the American people about the status of what's happening with COVID, and a mask mandate. I mean, this is the bare minimum. But under Trump, the bare minimum is a lot. So huge difference. I mean, that's just the reality of it, unfortunately. Discuss Trump being a narcissist, which, we all know this, obviously. Biden also used his personal empathy to speak to those who have experienced loss during COVID. I thought that was a powerful moment. If if someone in your life passed away from COVID-19, and understanding that Trump's failure here could have saved your loved one's life. That your loved one likely would not have gotten COVID had it been any other country. Then maybe that spoke to you. And Biden, being somebody who's experienced real loss in his life, was able to communicate that properly. So this is, in speeches like this is where you can see the personal empathy that Joe Biden has. You can see it come through in his ability to, at the very least, make it appear in a genuine way that he actually cares. Now, yes, when you get to specifics about policy, no Medicare for all, how does he really care if he's not trying to guarantee everyone health care? So, you can make the obvious connections there. But a speech like this is meant to hit on an emotional level, and I think that's what it did. And yeah, I mentioned here as well in my notes, a lack of Medicare for all undermines his entire message when it comes to healthcare and when it comes to COVID. Climate change surprisingly had a bit of a focus, which was good. Again, Biden not doing enough, but there's an obvious difference between Trump. I mean, this is the thing. Trump has lowered the bar so much. Anyone that thought there would be, this massive left-wing upswing after, once Hillary lost and Trump was in, all that happened was that it lowered the bar. It lowered the bar to the point that being honest about a pandemic is an incredible thing. Like, that's how low that Trump lowered the bar so much that Joe Biden is the nominee. It's right here. So there was no, there's no teaching the Democratic Party a lesson, because the Democratic Party is not a person. The Democratic Party is a party that's run by special interest, run by consultant class, run by big donors, run by corporations, run by Democratic leadership that is completely out of touch with the people. So there's no teaching them a lesson. They're not going to be taught a lesson. They're just going to keep pushing for what they're pushing for, which is why you have to primary the people out. Primary leadership, continue primarying leadership while also building pressure outside the party through a new party, while also running in local races, state races, beginning to gain power that way. Being part of a movement, whether it's, Black Lives Matter, DSA, some kind of progressive movement, get involved that way. There are many ways you can use your power, but that takes time. That takes time. You have to actually build that power to be able to make a difference. You can't just vote every 4 years and think that does something. It doesn't do anything. Voting is like 15% of the picture. The actual change happens through movements, through the ground up. You see, when it comes to civil rights, gay rights, any real change happens because there has been movements pushing for that change. With FDR, with the New Deal, he had communists and socialists pushing him to do that. It wasn't just, on a whim. There's pressures that you have to be able to amass first to be able to apply that pressure. So you have to understand the work starts, the work is done between elections. It's not done at the ballot box. It's done between elections. If you're talking about actual real left-wing change and real power and real help for people. So it's not about, people need to understand the vote is a tiny part of the entire picture. He also mentioned protecting Social Security, Medicare, which, yes, she's tried to cut like a million times. But again, understanding as well, that was a older Biden. And, he's going to come out here in his first big speech and make the promise to not cut Social Security, Medicare. Well, it's going to be a great thing to hold him to when you got the Democratic caucus here that's growing. That's going to be putting that pressure on Democratic leadership and on Joe Biden to actually offer something for people. So you're going to have people hold him accountable for that, as Bernie Sanders did in 2013 with Barack Obama and Social Security. So, and he ended near the end with actually, I think I mentioned this already, but systemic racism, which of course Biden's had quite a hand in when it came to the crime bill. But in terms of the cultural impact, Trump's cultural impact, hate crimes, massive increase under Donald Trump. You cannot deny the cultural impact, the negative cultural impact of Donald Trump. You just can't deny that. It exists. It's real. It results in affecting people's lives. So you simply can't deny that. And that is a massive difference. So there you go. Very interesting ending here with the fireworks. Biden had to give the speech of his life, and I think he did it. I've never seen him give a speech like that. That was a great speech. So there you go. Topping off a largely horrible 4 days of mostly bullshit. But and a lot of that speech, of course, you dig into his record. Of course, there's some bullshit in there. But everything I said, right now it's Trump. And that's the first step. Getting out this lunatic that has had a serious impact, not just in terms of policy, which I've discussed a million times, issues like DACA, DAPL, the Iran deal, Paris Climate Accord, but also in terms of the cultural impact of Donald Trump. Don't ignore that. That has an actual, real impact on people's lives.